All right, let's talk to Steve. Steve in Nebraska, you are on the line with Jimmy and Eve. Steve, did you know that Jimmy Snow has a podcast starting September 6th?
I do now.
Hell yeah. All right, what's up, Steve?
That's all that matters.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, hey, Jimmy, hi, Eve, and happy Labor Day weekend to everybody. I'm a repeat caller, enjoy your show, and what I wanted to discuss this time was a near-death experience of mine has led me to suspect we are living in a simulation which should not be put to the test. So you want me to elaborate on that a little bit, perhaps?
Not really. What officially makes something a near-death experience?
Okay, so on July 1st, near the Papillion Public Library, within moments of me having read Dr. Melvin Bobson's paper regarding how to test the simulation hypothesis, I was nearly struck down by lightning. And as the storm raged on past me, I was thinking, well, perhaps maybe we simulated beings best ought not put this God-forsaken mainstream simulated universe to the test. And then as that
Steve.
thought occurred, a rainbow in the sky appeared to me.
Hey, Steve, what question did I ask you?
Nearly getting struck by lightning is the direct answer to your question you'd asked me.
Steve, what was the question itself?
What do you consider being a near-death experience?
I said, what officially qualifies as a near-death experience? Wasn't talking about your experience, wasn't asking for the story. I'm glad we got to it. I didn't interrupt it because I knew we were going to get to it eventually. But what I'm asking you is, people love this term near-death experience for proof of whatever. In your case, simulation, but a lot of people say it for God. You've said near-death experience, and now you've shared that for you, instead of like the near-death experience where a lot of people like, which is like, I got into an accident, I was dead for some amount of time. While I was dead, X happened. Your near-death experience is almost more literal. Something that could have killed me happened nearby, but I was fine. And then it sounded like, tell me if I'm getting your story right. Hang on, let me finish.
I did not hallucinate. I didn't have any LAPA oxygen in my brain.
I don't think you need to hallucinate to see. I don't think you need to. I don't think you need to hallucinate to see a lightning strike and a rainbow. I'm not accusing you of hallucinating. Unless there is something more to the story that I missed, those are natural phenomena that, by the way, tend to happen close to each other. Both of them are elements of rainstorms. Go ahead,
Steve. You're like getting ahead of Jimmy. He's like, if we take this one step at a time, instead of you trying to guess what he's going to say next, then we can just have an honest conversation, which I think will be much more interesting. You know,
yeah,
we're
more useful too.
And we want to engage and have a conversation. So, and here's my initial problem with this, with calling it a near-death experience. I think the only thing that made it that way was because you happen to know that in your view, it was near death. How many times in our life do we almost die and we have no idea about it? You know, like technically we've probably all had, thousands of near death experiences. If this is how we're qualifying them, you just happen to be aware that you were in a potentially dangerous moment in life, maybe.
Right.
Yeah. So Steve, I'm going to ask you a few questions about this on near death. The area, were you outside at the time?
Yes. So after I read about this proposed experiment by Dr. Melvin
No. Hang on.
To test the simulation hypothesis, I left the library because there was a weather alert on my phone. Yeah, go ahead.
You don't have to answer more than the question asked. You will get a chance to elaborate on more things when it's appropriate. Okay? So Steve, you were outside. Were you outside in a field, or were you outside amongst buildings, amongst trees? Where were you outside, as briefly as you can describe?
best description would be in a field, walking towards my car.
In a field, walking towards your car. Were there any buildings nearby?
Library was probably within 50 feet.
Library within 50 feet. Are you willing to tell me what town this was in? You don't have to, but if you don't care.
Papillion, Nebraska, July 1st, around 5 p.m.
Sorry, what part of Nebraska?
Papillion, Nebraska. It's south of Omaha.
Spell that. Will you spell it for me?
OMAH, Omaha, and it was Papillion. Papillion.
TIT. Tatillion? Is that what you're saying?
With a P. Yeah, Papillion.
Papillion, Nebraska. Okay. So you're in Papillion, Nebraska. Found it. Looks like it's a small town, right? Or how big is it? Let me see. Papillion, Nebraska.
It's a suburb of Omaha. It's probably, I'm guessing, maybe 20,000 people.
So you are within 50 feet of Papillion Public Library, correct?
Correct.
Great. Where did the lightning strike?
Well, I couldn't tell exactly what I saw. I saw a flash of lightning. I could then feel my hair standing up, and I just dropped to the ground instinctively to my knees. And then as I dropped, I heard the clasp, and I felt the ground around me trembling. I couldn't see. I didn't see any lightning damage anywhere by, but I knew I was, it came pretty damn close.
Well, enough for you to feel static, for the record, and be very startled. In fact, literally within the last... Arden, did I send you those videos a week ago or 2 weeks ago of all the lightning?
Them.
Yeah, was that a week or 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I think it was a week ago.
So last week, I literally saw lightning strike the field behind my house. It's the first time I've seen where lightning hit the ground ever in my life, where I actually saw the plasma charge explode, saw the smoke come off of it. Cool. It was an incredible experience. Here's the deal.
That's cool, man.
You don't know where the lightning was. Hang on. You don't know where the lightning was, but you experienced a lightning strike during a weather event that you got an alert for. I have pulled up Papillion Public Library. To describe yourself as within a field within 50 feet of that is not accurate. There are no fields within 50 feet. There are fields. There is a field quite a bit away, several blocks away, but there are buildings all over the place. So even just the description of a near-death experience, where if you look up the nature of lightning, lightning tends to strike whatever the tallest thing in an area is. That's why they say, like, you might want to find coverage, but not necessarily coverage under the tallest tree, unless that's your only option. And even then, don't stand right by the core of the tree, because if it hits the top, it can come through and hit you. I wouldn't even describe... Hang on, Steve.
By a tree.
Great, Steve. Your car is parked by a tree. Wonderful. And you are surrounded by buildings. In fact, I can street view roughly where I believe you actually were. You are surrounded by things that are highly more likely.
Between the library, the courthouse.
Yep. You know what's funny is that's actually where I popped down street view. I'm not even kidding. Was between the courthouse and the library.
Oh yeah. So you see exactly where I was. You
hang on, Steve. Stop trying to get a control of this. I can see that you not only are where you were, you are one of the least likely things to get struck by lightning. So basically just describing, let's start here. Near-death experience is a little bit of a hyperbole. That's what I'm going to go with. It's a little hyperbolic to say near. Yes, it is indeed.
No, just be nice and say it was a little bit of a stretch. Okay, just say it.
Stretch is fine. I'll go with stretch. Hyperbolic isn't any less unkind, but whatever.
How about liberal with the truth? Liberal with the truth.
Oh my God.
Okay.
But
so now,
even if we say that it's an ND, I'm still not sure how we're getting from there to what your next claim is.
Right. So after this weather event, as you're contemplating it and looking out, you see a rainbow. And the way you put it was a rainbow appeared before you. Were other people capable of seeing this rainbow, or was it your rainbow?
Oh, well, of course, because the storm was moving out, and I mean, the sun was reflecting off the clouds.
Got it. Only needed, of course.
So other people witnessed this. I would have had witnesses to see the rainbow.
Wonderful.
I don't think anybody saw me.
Wonderful. So Steve, here is the point. Here's the point I'm making, and now I will be coming to the end of my questions. You can then either converse with Eve, or if you feel like there's more story that is going to change it, you definitely can. But this is where it's all leading. What I hear, Steve, is you read about something interesting, and then in Nebraska, known for storms, experienced a weather event and assigned qualities of that. Stop, Steve. Stop. The date doesn't matter. Dates aren't real. Okay? On whatever day, whatever, you in Nebraska in the summer experienced a weather event, and because you had just read about it, you assigned value to parts of that weather event that would have happened whether you had read it or not, Steve. And the reason I'm bringing it up is this is literally how Mormons convert people. The Book of Mormon, at the end of the Book of Mormon, has a promise that if you read it and start looking for a sign, you will find signs. And they think that those signs come from God. What they actually come from is a cognitive bias called confirmation bias. When you are looking for evidence, you'll find it, but it won't actually be exclusive evidence. It won't actually be proof. It will be something that affirms your internal bias and desire to affirm it. All that I see happen to you, Steve, was a near not death experience, just a weather experience that you put in to something that you wanted to affirm, in the same way that in 2000, I want to say 7, I saw the movie I Am Legend at like 1 a.m. And on the drive home, a lot of those shadows I was passing looked like vampire people. Now, Steve, that is my point to you. I will pass this to Eve. Well, they were technically vampires, if you think about it. They still breathed. They ate humans. They were killed by sunlight. They couldn't be in the sun. Yeah, they are technically vampires.
They're like a zombie vampire hybrid. Well, so Steve, my question.
You need to read the book.
Let's say, yeah, I do.
I'm going to debate you on this. Go
ahead. Steve, so let's pretend that this was like you almost died. Let's pretend you had a near-death experience, or we'll give you that, whatever you want to call it. I'm curious, what is your main point? What's your claim here?
Well, I believe that, just the order of events, it just seemed kind of weird, like coincidental, or too much to be a coincidental. I mean, I was reading about this.
So what was it? That's what I'm asking. What do you think? What do you think happened? Right, I understand. You've told the whole story. But so, Steve, you've told the whole story. I'm curious, what did all of this end up ultimately making you believe?
I believe that there was some kind of message from maybe the Supreme Elohim, the simulation programmer, trying to warn me that Dr. Melvin Bobson's proposed experiment to test the simulation theory should not be conducted.
So you think it was a warning
campaign?
You think it was a warning from a god to tell you not to test the simulation, and ended up what happened is because of that happening, it made you think even more that it's a simulation. So that backfired on that God's plan. So that just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I have no idea for sure who's outside the simulation, but we can test it. There's a way that we can test. Dr. Melvin Botson has come. You can read about it online. I'm not going to go over the, bore you with the details of how it can be tested, but you can look online and see that Dr. Melvin Botson has a proposed experiment to test the simulation theory. And if it's true, I mean, is that going to convert you guys over to believing, hey, there's something more to reality than what we perceive?
If it survived, first of all, if it survived peer review, yes, I would accept the scientific consensus.
He is the most prestigious information physicist.
And yet we have never, ever accepted prestige as a means to bypass peer review. We peer review Einstein. We peer review Einstein. We peer review Newton. We don't skip peer review because somebody's real sexy at science. If he survived at the experiment, Steve. People aren't peer reviewed. Experiments are. Research papers are. Whether or not he's been peer reviewed in the past, Steve, yes. If his experiment survives peer review, then I would accept the scientific consensus. And then, Steve, I would feel extra fucked. Because if that is true, that we have a natural appearing universe, but we have proven that we are actually not in base reality, and that there is at least one reality outside of our reality responsible for ours, how will I ever get to investigate the nature of that reality? How would it would suck to find out. But Steve, we haven't even proved in our universe that such simulations are possible to be made, that we could make, and that is what simulation theory almost always is based upon.
So we're getting close.
Now, Steve,
not yet. We're getting close.
We don't know if we're getting close because we don't know if there's a fundamental thing that it's like the way people have thought we were just about to get immortality since medicine started hundreds of years ago. And every time we've been further away, I swear to God, you cannot fucking help but interrupt. Steve, there is no good reason yet to believe that simulation theory is a thing and a hypothesis from somebody who wants to experiment. I support the experiment. I support trying to find out. I support, if the experiment succeeds, then going on to peer review it. But you're already making presumptions of one, it's true, and that if this is a simulation, imagine if we simulated universes. We would have the computer set in such a way that some random species in the corner in point one of 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 several more 0.1% of the simulation, some random species might have pieced together that there was a simulation. So let's head over there and send a lightning bolt that also is consistent with the natural shit already going on and no anomaly to create it goes. Steve, you are getting into conspiracy thinking.
Can I ask a question real quick, Steve?
Of course.
I have a friend, Steve, who was Muslim, and somebody gave him a Bible. He started reading it and he prayed. He said, if Jesus is real, I want you to show me that you're real. And that night he had an experience where he believes that Jesus showed up in his room and he saw Jesus. And now he's a Christian and has been for like 15 years. So what is the difference between what happened with him and what happened with you?
Well, I think you guys are leading me to believe I have confirmation bias. That's what I'm thinking.
I asked you
you
a
guys
question,
are doing.
Steve. I'm not trying to lead you to anything. I'm genuinely trying to have a conversation with you, and I'm asking what I think is a very valid question. What is the difference between what happened with my friend and that made him start believing? And I don't care if you want to call it coincidence or whatever. All I did was tell you the story. I'm asking what's the difference between that and what happened with you?
Well, I think different. Well, I mean, I had a personal experience that kind of made me think,
So but it led you to believe two completely different and opposing beliefs.
I mean, I can't judge anybody else on their personal experiences, so it's not anything to try to proselytize you guys. I don't expect you guys my experiences to convince you guys of anything. It's just for me personally.
Yeah, and we are here with people who had confirmation of our religious beliefs by experiences and are trying to share with you that that's not good enough to believe based on. It's a it's a unfalsifiable belief you have. You think there's an experiment that might point to it.
It is
that's
now.
Coming.
It is now, but it won't be. Soon it'll be testable.
And Steve, you've already accepted that it's true. So you're bragging about, while it's in its unfalsifiable state, accepting something is true prior with the same reasoning that Muslims use, that Mormons use, that Christians use, that Hindus use. And you don't believe any of their bullshit, but they can all give you personal experiences affirming their religion.
I believe a lot of Mormonism. I don't believe it all, but I believe some Mormonism is true.
Upon what basis would you not believe it all? If Mormonism's either true or it isn't true. Joseph Smith was either a prophet, and the Book of Mormon is either the history of the American continent or it isn't.
I mean, he did prophesize about the Civil War like 35 years.
No, he didn't. He identified
I'm sorry, I don't
things
wanna
and
go
tensions
off
that we're
topic
already
about
having.
Mormonism.
Steve, are you a Mormon?
My brother is. I'm not. He's a Jack Mormon, though. But,
Yeah, the claim about the
I don't wanna
Civil
get him in
War is
trouble.
completely bogus. He wasn't saying anything that most people weren't saying at that time.
Oh, it wasn't educated.
It's like
guess.
me
Okay.
prophesying.
Yeah, you're
That's
right.
like me
Okay.
prophesying the Gaza war on after October 7th happened. There's going to be a war there. It's coming. And who would have seen it coming before? In fact, you can actually watch a video on this channel from a month before October 7th where I'm talking about Israel, Palestine, and the problems there and how tensions are rising and shit's coming. I guess I'm a prophet now, Steve. Come to my church.
So
Steve,
I got your point.
Steve, read up on confirmation
you're right.
bias and figure out how you're
know.
escaping it.
Okay.
Because confirmation bias is something we all experience, but the difference is some people experience confirmation bias and actively work against it. And when they identify that it is probably the reason they believe something, they let go of that belief. And that's what you need to do here, Steve. If you still want to keep track of that experiment that's going to happen, great.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I like your guys' perspective. All right, you guys have a nice weekend. Thanks.
Okay. See you, Steve.
Yeah.
I was going to challenge him on the fact that I was wrapping up and he was once again interrupting, but honestly, let's move on. I don't like being interrupted. I'm fine with it by Eve, by people who are trying to get ahead of me. When it's literally just like, we will have the most productive conversation. You'll get to make all of your points and we'll keep it consistent. If you just stop, I've been doing it a while. I know the way we should have these conversations, not to win, the way we should have the conversations to where you get your piece out and we get all of it. Now, am I going to win? Yeah, because I'm right and you're wrong. But that's not the intention of the line of questioning.
Well, it's just not, you can't have an honest conversation if somebody is trying to anticipate what you're going to say next. So better to just have an actual conversation like one would with a regular person in real life.
Hey, what's up? I'm glad you enjoyed that clip of people talking to each other. I'm Jimmy and this is Eric. And well, we'd really love it if you would support us. Where can they support us, Eric? Where would they do that?
I don't know, Jimmy, because I don't have the notes on me right now.
This is too long.
Like
the outros have to be short. Patreon.com/call the line.